Good morning, grade 8s. Our snow day reading for today is Rules of Survival, chapter 37, 38, and 39. Just to give you a recap of where we've been. So the last time we read, Nikki violated her restraining order and was put in jail for 2 days. While she was in jail, her family, Matt and Callie and Emmy and Aunt Bobby and Ben, were getting Christmas ready in Aunt Bobby's apartment. They had the tree up. They had presents under the tree. They had a meal ready to go for when Nikki arrived. And when Nikki got home, she was less than impressed. She just wanted to be in her apartment, and Matt realized that nothing had changed at all. So here we go. Chapter 37. Men are idiots. I'm not sure if I agree with that, but here we go anyways. The rest of that winter passed. You and Callie and I lived like hostages in enemy territory. Aunt Bobby and Ben plotted strategy with Murdoch and kept watch. And Murdoch was literally besieged, followed, watched, and randomly attacked. Jail had not affected Nikki's determination or her rage at Murdoch, although she did a better job of staying physically as far away as she was supposed to. But there were still nuisance phone calls and some insulting, but carefully unthreatening letters. None of these could be proven to be from her, and there were a couple more men like Rob. I heard about that part from Aunt Bobby. She called me into her apartment one evening to tell me that Murdoch had gone to the emergency room the previous night. "He'll be fine," she said. Someone bit him." "What?" "I know it sounds strange, but someone Nikki found, actually bit Murdoch on the arm." Aunt Bobby rolled her eyes. "Don't ask me how it happened, though." I made a disbelieving face at her, and she relented, unable to resist just a little gossip. "Well, all I know is that this guy was apparently waiting in the trash alley outside Murdoch's house. Imagine, it was freezing cold last night." "Waiting to bite him? Like a dog? How?" "Matt, I really don't know anymore. Can we forget I said anything? Murdoch doesn't want you to know about these sorts of things. It's better if you don't." "Why? Why shouldn't I know what's going on? And what do you mean by these sorts of things? Has something like this happened before? I mean, with someone else besides that guy Rob?" "We just don't want you worried, that's all," Aunt Bobby said. "I worry all the time," I pointed out, but I couldn't make her say anything else. I was furious at being left out of the loop, and of course I had 10,000 questions that I couldn't get answers to. I tried to put together a misty picture of what happened on this occasion. This new guy had somehow been recruited by Nikki and waited outside Murdoch's house for him. But I wanted details. Had the guy had a weapon with him, like when Rob had brought the baseball bat? Personally, I thought it was crazy to wait for some guy without, something in your hands. Though I suppose I myself wouldn't bring an actual gun unless I really meant business. But somehow, this guy had ended up biting Murdoch. This was so extremely weird. How did Murdoch feel about it? Was he freaked out? How could he not be? My mind kept returning compulsively to the biter. Had he run off after the bite? Been arrested like Rob? If not, could the police question Nikki, make her tell them who he was? Was this going to lead to more jail time for Nikki? For the biter? Who were these men Nikki found who were willing to wait outside a strange man's house to hurt him? Was everybody crazy? I wandered back into Aunt Bobby's kitchen, where she was reading the real estate pages in the Sunday newspaper. I sat down opposite her and waited until she turned the page. "How does Nikki work it exactly?" I blurted. "She meets some guy and then says, 'There's this man I'd like you to go after for me,' and they're willing to do it? Why, are they desperate for sex or something? Are they high? Are they crazy? What?" Aunt Bobby folded her hands flat on top of the newspaper. Pink touched her cheeks. "I'm sorry," I said. "I just wondered." Aunt Bobby hesitated. "I wonder too, but I don't have an answer for you. It's pretty amazing, you have to admit it." "Most men," Aunt Bobby burst out, "are idiots about women." Fury passed between her face. "I'm quoting Nikki, actually. She's always said that. It's the one thing I agreed with her about. It's that simple." "Maybe," I said. Even though that was a good explanation in some ways, it wasn't enough for me. I wanted to know how she did it. I wanted details. I decided to ask Ben. I saw quite a bit of Ben that January and February. We'd taken to meeting for breakfast at least once a week after he got off his night shift and before I went to school. He was meeting Callie often too. At first, he was reluctant to talk to me about what he called Nikki's methods, but I kept after him. I wondered if he had once been like one of the men Aunt Bobby described, one of the idiots. Had Murdoch been an idiot too? Was he still? Was it just the male condition? Were we all doomed? Finally, early one morning over breakfast, Ben told me. Suppose you meet a woman, Ben said, at a bar, let's say. You've had 2 or 3 or 4 beers. She's pretty, sexy, and she seems into you. You want to impress her. He shrugged. I waited for more, but Ben simply drank his coffee and then looked around for the waitresses. That's it? I said, finally, incredulous. The guys she finds just want to impress her? Well, that's the main thing. Ben looked down into his now empty coffee mug. The waitress had waved at him, but hadn't come back yet. The wanting to impress. But how does it work exactly? Does she just bring up that there's somebody she wants you to hurt, and then you do it, and then she'll be impressed? Would she say it just like that? Straight out? To some guy she just met in a bar? I couldn't believe it. Well, no, not explicitly, no, but it's still clear. How is it clear? Does she say, do this for me, and then I hesitated, do something for you? Ben shrugged and said nothing. I can't picture it, I said. I don't understand. Good, said Ben. But I want to understand, I said. Ben's coffee refill arrived. Ben, I said, look, you're my father. I think it's your job to tell me. This is like life skills. He seemed to find this convincing. Okay, Matt, suppose the pretty, sexy woman sitting at the bar next to you lets you buy her a drink or two, and then she gets all sad. She tells you this real horrible story. She's been tortured by this man. He's her ex-boyfriend, her ex-husband, whatever. She's afraid of him. He's jealous and he's mean. She tells you stuff that's really awful about this man. He beats up her kids, or maybe he hit on her little daughter. He beat her up too. She can show you a bruise. The police are of no help. She's scared all the time. She's maybe had a drink too many, and you know that, but you listen anyway. She's so pretty, and she's cuddling up to you. And finally you say, somebody ought to teach that man a lesson. And she said, I wish somebody would. My ex is a real coward. If somebody would just stand up to him, he'd back right down. I know he would, especially a big, strong man like you. Ben looked at me straight on. That's it, Matt. That's all there really is to it. That conversation might happen in a bar some night. It might happen later, in bed. So now you know. Aunt Bobby was right, I said. Men are idiots. Ben shrugged. Yeah, maybe. But it can be powerful stuff when a pretty woman asks you for help. I asked you for help, I thought suddenly. I asked, and you said no. To me, to Callie, to Emmy, you said no. And what are you saying now, that in a bar, to a strange woman, you'd want to say yes if she was pretty? I understand, I said to my father, but I didn't, and I still don't. Chapter 38. Crash. In the pre-dawn hour of a Saturday morning in early spring, our phone rang. I awoke immediately. It was Aunt Bobby. Matt, can you come down here, she asked. I did. Callie had woken up too, and she came with me. You were still asleep, and we left you alone. Nicky, of course, was out. Aunt Bobby opened her apartment door to us. She had a threadbare terry cloth robe wrapped around her, and one hand was touching her throat. I'm not entirely clear on what Aunt Bobby said that night. I think that I just have to explain what happened, the full truth, as I finally knew it, and not what I learned first, second, and third as information trickled in. Aunt Bobby had gotten a phone call from Boston Medical Center. Nicky was in the emergency room there. She had been in a car crash, but she was going to be fine. However, the other person in the crash was not going to be fine. That other person was Julie Lindman, Murdoch's next-door neighbor. Julie had been seriously hurt. She was going to live, but that was a miracle because, among other injuries, her neck was broken. It was very possible that Aunt Bobby didn't learn about Julie right away. Probably, we only heard about Nicky's car crash at first, and that someone else was hurt. I don't remember exactly when I learned what, but I must have heard more than the simple fact that someone was badly hurt, because if so, I would have thought it was Murdoch, and that I would remember. Murdoch wasn't home that night at all. He had driven out to the western part of the state with a friend who wanted renovation advice on a house. Murdoch had taken care to make sure Nicky didn't follow him, as she often did. So when Nicky got to his house that night, she found his truck gone and his windows dark. She had parked and waited, watching, drinking coffee, And then, sometime near 11 o'clock, Julie came out and got into her Beetle convertible, and Nicky decided to follow her. There was no restraining order to keep Nicky 100 yards away from Julie Lindman. Nothing to keep her from having fun, terrorizing another driver on the icy March roads of Boston until the other driver panicked. Emmy, here's the thing. This horrible accident was our big break. Yours, mine, and Callie's. It was the mistake Murdoch had been hoping to goad Nicky into making. Only in the end, it was innocent Julie who provoked Nicky, and Julie who paid. Julie is never going to walk again. Murdoch says that what happened was this. Julie saw Nicky sitting out there in her car, watching his house, waiting for him, and she decided to draw her off because she thought the whole situation was like something out of a suspense thriller. She didn't realize it was real. She didn't take our mother seriously. I have never seen Julie again, Emmy. I don't want to. I'm afraid to. We owe her so much, and I keep imagining that she sits in her wheelchair in Virginia Beach, where her family is and where she lives now, and hates us for ruining her life. How could she not? But she testified against Nicky, who went to jail again. It was only a short jail stay because, incredibly, Nicky had only committed a minor crime called reckless endangerment. But that didn't matter. Ben and Aunt Bobby moved into action. They sued for joint custody of all three of us, with Bobby's presence neatly solving the potential issue of Emmy not being Ben's daughter. Nicky fought, but the judge wasn't sympathetic to her, and all in all, it was easier than I ever would have believed. All that was required from Callie and me was 5 minutes in front of the judge, with Ben and Aunt Bobby standing by, looking very normal and very responsible. We had won our freedom, but it wasn't at all what I thought it would be. It didn't make me feel completely safe, the way I'd dreamed. Nicky was still out there.